refuel, so he'll be breaking station shortly. I just want you to check the Bravo and see if he can this artillery we got programmed to go down here where we can ready before he steps far over. Missionary Kilo
Swift was a real bloodbath, recall the survivors. Operation Swift, intended to be the fourth and the last of the 1967 operations into Khe Sanh Valley, Vietnam, began unofficially on the morning of September 4th when Delta Company 1st Battalion, 5th Marines, was attacked before dawn by a superior force while set up in a nighttime defensive perimeter next to the village of Dong Son. Ambushed and aggressively attacked, the company was pinned down by early afternoon. Navy Chaplain Lieutenant Vince Capodanno was already loved and trusted by his men, and that day he earned a place in history as one of Navy's most dedicated chaplains. There are monuments in his honor, and both the chapel at Camp Pendleton, California, and the U.S. Navy fast frigate bear his name. On that small, bloody knoll, where the Marines were outnumbered 2,500 to 500, it took more than 25 enemy bullets to stop Father Capodanno, already severely wounded, as he moved about the battlefield, ministering to the dying and rescuing the wounded. Father Capodanno was awarded a posthumous Medal of Honor for his heroic conduct on the battlefield that day. The character required in the making of such a man was apparent in Vincent Capodanno from an early age. Born in Staten Island, New York, in 1929, Capodanno received an example of humble self-sacrifice from his parents, Italian-American immigrants whose lives were lived entirely for their 9 children. The family always did things together, and the dinner table was the center of family life. "We never started eating until everyone was there, including the dog," remembers Vincent's brother, James. "It was a close and healthy, loving world." James also describes his brother as normal, insomuch as he didn't spend long hours in prayer, yet he was very close to the church, devout and reserved. In 1949, during a retreat following his first year at Fordham University, he confided to his best friend that he wanted to be a priest. That same year, Capodanno entered the Maryknoll Missionaries. He was ordained a Roman Catholic priest on June 14, 1958, and was then sent to the Hakka people of western Taiwan. Missionary life was often unstructured and chaotic, and conditions were primitive, but Capodanno took on all of his duties with zeal. Father Dan Dolan, who worked with him for 6 months, said he put great care and effort into everything he did, from saying Mass to making Christmas decorations to doing catechesis and outreach in local villages. After 7 years in Taiwan, he was briefly transferred to the Order's high school in Hong Kong before the war in Vietnam broke out, compelling him to enter the Navy as a chaplain. In April 1966, Lieutenant Capodanno deployed to the Republic of Vietnam. He would never come home. When he first arrived, he was assigned as a chaplain with the 1st Marine Division. He was the only Catholic chaplain in the area, and the Marines quickly nicknamed him the Grunt Padre because he shared so much of their life. He seemed to be everywhere at once, saying Mass every day, bringing sacraments to the sick and dying, hearing confessions, and most of the time he was to be found with the Marines in the field. A fellow chaplain said of Father Capodanno's transforming impact on his fellow Marines, "Those grunts saw Christ when they saw Vince." "From the first day I met him," testifies Byron Hill of the 3rd Battalion, 5th Marines, "I knew he was a chaplain for the field Marine. Previous chaplains would sometimes disappear when we mounted out on an operation. However, it was clear that Father Capodanno knew where he was needed. During the time he was with the battalion, I spent countless hours talking with him about faith, just about life in general, and I always found him a true inspiration. It was interesting. He never asked if I was a Catholic, and I was not a Catholic at that time. I welcomed the comfort he provided. Father Capodanno was always there when he was needed, and I never knew of a Marine in our division who didn't say how much he loved him." Corporal Ray Harton remembers one of the first encounters with the priest while he was preparing for a combat operation. "He just slid under the tent flap. There he was. When he walked in, you had to pay attention." Harton would meet the chaplain again. On the morning of September 4th, 1967, Father Capodanno volunteered to go out with Marine units that were being flown in to relieve a battalion in the hotly contested Quezon Valley. Knowing that an attack was imminent, he spent most of the previous night praying for those who would lose their lives that day. Soon after landing, Capodanno's unit was hit hard by a force of over 2,000 North Vietnamese. As the Marines came over the crest of the hill, they were bombarded with mortar shells and automatic weapons fire. "We're being wiped out," one platoon radioed back. "They're wounded and dying all around us now." And hearing that message, the chaplain, who never carried a weapon, left his secure station and ran to the beleaguered platoon through an open area raked with fire. Despite many painful wounds to his face, arms, and legs, a portion of his right hand was severed off by a blow. He refused all medical aid and continued to move about the battlefield in the service of his fellow men, dragging wounded to shelter and providing last rites to the dying. One of those wounded was Ray Harton. He was bleeding heavily and had given himself up for dead. And then he looked up suddenly and he saw Father Capodanno. He remembers, "I can't explain it, but when he touched me, I heard his voice. I had a calming feeling that I've never had before or since." Father Capodanno looked down at him and said, "God is with us this day." Capodanno pulled Harton to safety and blessed him with his still intact left hand. Then a wounded corpsman screamed in pain, and Capodanno ran to help him. He reached the man, but as he knelt beside him to help him, a burst of machine gun fire killed both men instantly. One of the soldiers who brought Capodanno's body back in hours later said that he had a smile on his face and his eyelids were closed as if he were asleep or in prayer. A portion of his Medal of Honor citation reads as follows, quote, "Disregarding the intense enemy small arms, automatic weapons, and mortar fire, Father Capodanno moved about the battlefield, administering last rites to the dying and giving medical aid to the wounded. When an exploding mortar round inflicted painful multiple wounds on his arms and legs and severed a portion of his right hand, the Catholic priest steadfastly refused all medical aid. Instead, he directed the corpsmen to help their wounded comrades, and with calm vigor, continued to move about the battlefield as he provided encouragement by voice and example to the valiant Marines. By his heroic conduct on the battlefield that day and his inspiring example, Lieutenant Capodanno upheld the finest traditions of the U.S. Naval Service. He gallantly gave his life for the cause of freedom," end quote. Father Capodanno's cause for canonization has been opened, and in 2002 he became a servant of God. If the life and death of Father Vincent Capodanno are any indication of his heart and soul, then we Catholics can pray and hope, along with his friend and fellow Marine, Doc, who said, "Who knows, maybe someday we'll be St. Vincent, the guardian angel of the Marines." So the next time someone tells you that the Catholic Church of the past lacked mercy or didn't know how to love the sinner, please tell them the story of Father Vince Capodanno, a real missionary of mercy who gave his life for his friends, his Marines, and he died helping them find God. Greater love than this no man hath. Father Vince Capodanno, Catholic priest, Catholic hero, Catholic martyr, Catholic American, pray for us.
He said, "You're going to be all right." And he ran over to this other fellow that was screaming to assist him and give him aid. And that's when he was received 27 bullet holes. The enemy was in the thicket, not too far away, and he opened up his machine gun and killed Father Vincent. When the word got around right away that Father Vincent was killed, he said it was like a shroud came over the whole 2nd Marine Division. He said fellas were crying. He said everything was quiet.